digital equivalence of an analog thing that has existed for a long time. It's just more of a metaphor, and how it doesn't matter how you implement these things so much, because you don't actually copyright these things. You don't copyright your implementation. You basically say, I have this thing which works like this, and you have no way around it. If you want to implement something like page down, or if you want to implement something like tab browsing, there is no very simple way of getting around these patents except for removing these features from your product, or paying for somebody else to allow you to just write code. So that's quite a disturbing thing, not just to free software. It's not a free software issue. It's more of a small business against big business issue, because the small companies cannot afford to have these patents, and even if they do try to sue the company, they will be sued, tenfold for the things they have, for certain things they try and sell.
Well,
Unless
yeah, I was going to say the analogy that I put on it, to try and give people an idea of what this actually means, is these patents are designed to keep the people, the big companies, and keep the little boys club together, and not let anyone into their little racket. If you think about it, imagine, since it's Slashdot, people like their car analogies. Imagine if there's, say, 10 car companies, and between all 10 of them, they control all of the patents that cover everything from a steering wheel to the brakes, to seats, to seat belts, to indicator lights, to bumpers, you name it. And between all 10 of them, they own the patents for the entire car. They can easily say to each other, right, we'll cross license with each other, so we're not going to sue each other. We don't pay each other. We just agree that, yeah, you can access our stuff without paying us, and we can access yours. And it's a cosy little boys club. And then someone else comes in from the outside and says, I want to make a car, I can do it cheaper. And the 10 big companies go, oh, you think so, do you? Bang, here's lots and lots of lawsuits. You're using a steering wheel, you pay us. You're using indicator lights, you pay us. So no one else can enter that market. They ensure that the small companies have to either pay up a fortune in licensing all these different rights, which means that there's no possible way they can enter the market at any affordable price. So the customer never gets that new company. They're stuck with the 10. And once you've got that little cabal of companies, what incentive is there for them to keep innovating? Because once they innovate to a new thing, that adds new patents onto it, and they essentially want to keep the norm as stuff that keep the status quo, essentially. Just don't rock the boat, just keep the income rolling in.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. Well, patent essentially is a monopoly, so if you think about saturating the market with lots of very small monopolies and small algorithms, and then you can aggregate these monopolies, you empower the existing monopolies. And one of the things it's called sometimes the patent thicket, which is more of a kind of a visual analogy or whatever to try and say what happens here is these companies try to basically build a sort of a fence, deny new entrants from just doing their thing. And usually innovations come from the outside, from very small companies that have an idea, and they either get bought out by the big corporations, or in some cases, if they get very lucky, they can have enough space to grow like Google did, with a good algorithm and with quite a bit of capital. And the other thing that happens now, you hear a lot about the patent thickets in the context of phones, and it can be either smartphones, or it can be things like 3G and networking issues, because that's full of patents. That's just a whole load of patents. And if you're a small company, you won't be entered into the club unless you can put down your patents and say, well, look, I have 50 patents. Can I please enter the club? Can I put it in your pool? And we will be friends. And that's what also happened with the Open Inventions Network, the OIN. They are kind of a company that if you don't have patents, as far as I know, you have to pay them for the privilege of entering the club, and if you come to them and you have, well, look, I've got this bag of patents, they will give you a very nice kind of big chair and say, well, you're one of the few members.
So at what point does these arrangements, at what point does that step over the line and become a cartel?
It is a cartel, but the cartel is a bad word, so you shouldn't say cartel. It's kind of like saying racketeering when you're talking about trying to scare certain companies that are smaller and have them pay for a protection. Basically, we won't sue you if you pay us for this and that. But the press releases will tell you a very nice story about settlement or about the company signing a deal, because that's part of the promise. Like if you're a mafia person, you want the other person to come out smiling and say, oh, we are very happy, we became friends. You don't want him to come out kind of all shaky and say, oh, well, I kind of feel safe. So that's what happens with these companies. They sometimes tell a very nice story about how they signed a deal, and only later you find a report from the inside that says this company was going to be sued or was being sued, and then they agreed that if both parties kind of come out and say, oh, we are all very happy friends, then there won't be a lawsuit, and they will just pay some money for Microsoft to have this piece. That happened with Salesforce quite recently, where Microsoft was being called a patent troll by the CEO of Salesforce. But if you looked a few months later, you just found this very happy-peppy press release about the companies deciding, oh, we should, bury the hatchets, and what it actually had in the deal was Salesforce has to pass money to Microsoft for some patents. So it wasn't exactly happy. It was a sort of an extortion, but you won't see it from the outside.
Just very quickly, just to show sort of the convoluted nature. Sorry, Gordon. We don't seem to have Gordon at the moment. Apologies to people listening. For those.
Yeah, I was going to say we're having technical difficulties, but yeah, I think we're all still here.
Yeah. I'm blaming the weather at the moment. The UK is very cold, and there's snow spells all over the country, so it's probably something to do with the poor weather we're experiencing at the moment. If I could just throw in very quickly, which might be a point to continue on with, it might not. I'm just reading an article about Microsoft's appeal case with the Supreme Court in regards to the I4I case. Microsoft's appealing that case where Word was alleged to infringe patents held by the maker I4I. Roy, have you got anything that you can add to that? Because this is, like I said before, this is a topic that I very rarely cover, and since it's one that you concentrate on a lot, is there anything else you can add to that particular case?
I wrote about 30 posts about it over the past year and a half, I think. And it's an interesting one because I4I is not necessarily the good company here, but because they fight against Microsoft, lots of people hold on to I4I and kind of say, well, this company should attack Microsoft and try to show them that software patents can work against Microsoft as well. What this company is trying to tell us and has shown lots of evidence for is Microsoft pretended to be their friends. They got access to documents. They wanted to see what they did. And then Microsoft very maliciously and knowingly basically kind of, in pretty scary quotes, let's say, stole their idea, basically took their idea and copied and put it in Office. And as soon as they did that, they dropped the company and they weren't going to actually provide any value to this company. And they implemented some of their ideas in OOXML, in OpenXML as they call it, and they got sued for not only infringing patents, but very knowingly doing so, and very maliciously also taking the idea while pretending to be friends. Now this company, I4I, which is based in Canada, won the case, and it's kind of ascending all the way to the Supreme Court. And because Microsoft not only has to pay fines, but there is also a push for product removal, which can happen if you infringe on patents. And the last thing that's quite necessary to say here is that because OXML or OpenXML, if you want to call it the kind of the phony name. They call it OpenXML, but just basically, well, we call it open. They must be open. It's proprietary. What they have to do now is to